Are you tired of managing authorship issues for your scientific and medical manuscripts? Are you frustrated with making last-minute authorship decisions that just lead to conflict among your team? Do you want a strategy to avoid authorship debates from the start? Then this video is for you. This video is the last of the three-part series on authorship. The first video covered the criteria to qualify for authorship, and the second covered how to order authors in the byline. And both of these videos are linked in the description. And in this video, I will share a strategy you can use to encourage constructive discussions about authorship that support collaboration among your team. And if we haven't met, hello, my name is Crystal. Since 2011, I've collaborated with researchers to help them publish in high-impact journals and secure federal and foundation funding. And I've trained thousands of researchers and other professional writers all over the world to equip them with the principles, resources, and systems that they need to write well. And since 2021, I've been running the Redwood Ink Academy, where hundreds of researchers and professional writers have taken our courses to hone their writing skills with lots of incredible success stories. If you'd like to check out the Academy, there's more details in the video description. So authorship debates, or preferably discussions, can be challenging and can even lead to conflict among teams. And that's because authorship is not always a simple calculation of contribution. Many authors need to navigate a variety of other factors, such as power dynamics, research experience, or the culture of the lab, the department, or the institution. But I'm going to share a clear, objective, and collaborative strategy that you can use to navigate these factors much more easily and prevent any conflict from arising. The first thing to do is plan authorship from the start. Many research teams will wait to discuss authorship until they have a solid first draft, or even until very close to submission, when they might be tired of working on the manuscript or rushing to submit. And when you feel tired, stressed, or rushed, it's a lot easier to run into issues. So I recommend that you plan authorship from the start, before you write anything, or even before the research project even starts. And I recommend that you start by holding an initial meeting with the research team. This might just be members of your lab and maybe a few collaborators, or if you have a larger study, such as a multi-institutional, large-scale clinical trial, you might establish a committee. At this initial meeting, you want to discuss the authorship criteria, which in the sciences is most often the ICMJE criteria. I covered these criteria in the first video in this series, so be sure to check that out if you're not familiar with these criteria. So you want to make sure that everybody on the team is aware of the criteria that they need to meet to get authorship. And then you want to define what is considered a contribution that qualifies for authorship in the context of this particular project. So in the first video in this series, I mentioned that the substantial contribution criterion is subjective and can vary by the project and team. So you want to make sure that your team establishes what is considered a substantial contribution for this particular project from the beginning of the project. This way, you can ensure that all potential authors know the expectations and the potential consequences of not meeting those expectations from the very beginning. Then at this meeting, you want to establish authorship responsibilities. You want to discuss and clearly define the roles and responsibilities of each author. Who will do what for each aspect of the project, from the experiments to the analysis to the writing. And keep in mind that these contributions may change as the project evolves. Someone new may join the team, or the research project may shift direction because you uncovered something interesting or funding changed. Many different things can affect the project, so you need to be open to changes and adapt as things evolve. And this means that authorship discussions will be ongoing and not strictly decided at the beginning of the project. So be sure to meet with your team regularly to discuss authorship. You can meet at regular intervals, such as every month or every 6 months, or you could meet at major milestones, like after you finish collecting data and after you finish writing the first draft. Or you might meet if someone new joins your research team. And I also recommend having meetings dedicated to only discussing authorship. That way, you don't take away from other meetings about the project or the paper. Will these meetings take time? Yes, but they will also ensure that you have buy-in from everyone and that expectations are clear as the project evolves. And time spent early on is time and energy saved later when you don't have to deal with challenging authorship situations. Also, I know that in some teams, one person, usually the PI, just dictates authorship decisions and that's the end of it. But I encourage you to involve everyone on the project to support a collaborative, respectful culture among your team. I also recommend that you keep track of contributions. Keep track of everyone who contributed to the work and how they contributed. To do this, you can create a modifiable authorship grid that clearly outlines the responsibilities and contributions of each potential author. This authorship grid could be informed by standard taxonomies of author contributions, such as the credit criteria. These criteria were created to help authors recognize individual author contributions, reduce authorship disputes, and support collaboration. And many journals require authors to include a credit author statement in the manuscript. I'll add a link to those criteria in the description box. So you can create a grid with these criteria to help you define the roles and responsibilities and determine who gets authorship and choose what order to list the authors. Or you can use the downloadable, customizable Excel template that I created for you. So this template was inspired by an article published in Research in Nursing and Health in 2018. The author shared 3 forms of authorship grids, one for quantitative research, one for qualitative research, and one for literature synthesis. And using their grids as a starting point, I created this template that will work for most scientific and medical articles. But you might want to check out their article to get ideas for how you can customize this template to work best for your project and your team. So in this template, the order of authors are listed in columns across the top as first, second, third, etc. And you can add each potential author's name to each column, and then you can add or remove columns based on how many authors you will have for this particular project. Then in the rows, there are sections to categorize how each person contributed to the manuscript. The categories include responsibility, coordination and communication, ethical requirements, data, writing, and final approvals and submission. Then within each category, there are specific tasks. For example, ethical requirements includes who will be responsible for the IRB submission or the IACUC approval, or under data, who will be responsible for data collection or analysis, or under writing, who will be responsible for crafting a certain section of the manuscript. And if these categories or tasks are different for your team, this template is fully modifiable, so you can customize it however you need to. So this template also has 2 tabs. One tab has the blank grid, and the other tab has an example so that you can get an idea of what types of tasks or responsibilities you want to track. It's not an exhaustive example, so not every possible responsibility is included. That will vary by the project anyway, but this example will give you ideas to help you get started. And you can also check out the publication because they have some specific examples as well. And then once you modify the template to work best for your project and your team, you can then use that version as the template for your next project. So this template is completely free, and you can find a link to it in the description box. And I'd love to know how it works for you and for your team, so please keep me posted in the comments. And feel free to give me feedback on the template in the comments as well. I'd be happy to keep the template updated based on your helpful suggestions. So just know that the link will take you to the latest version of the authorship grid template. So another thing that is really important to do is to document discussions about authorship. Be sure to summarize all discussions in writing. It can be in something as simple as an email, but you want to track it in writing. So after a meeting about authorship, send the updated authorship grid to everyone on the team and ask them to send you an email to confirm that they read it and that they agree with what's in it. And then save that email just in case anything happens. I've seen authorship disputes after a paper is published, and that's when the journal gets involved, and so it can be really helpful to track everything that you can in writing. And the same is true for situations in which someone might qualify for authorship, but they elect not to be listed in the byline. So if you hire a writer and agree that the writer will or will not be listed in the byline, you want to be sure to get those details in writing, in an email, or in a contract. I mean, hopefully you won't run into any issues, but just in case, then you will have everything documented. Now, with careful planning, hopefully you won't run into issues that lead to disputes, but sometimes it still happens. So in the beginning, at the initial meeting, you want to agree on how to resolve disputes. You don't want to do this when a dispute arises because tensions may be high among your team, or more might be at stake, or you might put someone in an awkward or bad position. And although you might look to the PI to resolve disputes, this approach may not be ideal for the culture of the team, or the PI might be one of the authors making the dispute or involved in the dispute. So instead, you might agree to resolve disputes by getting advice or a decision from a neutral third party. So this might be an administrator or a researcher who's far removed from the work. Or you can get creative. For example, a Stanford researcher had 2 people with equal contribution in his lab, and to settle the debate, the authors played 3 games of Mario Kart, and the winner was given the first authorship slot. So you can get as creative as you want. You can have a cooking contest, a running race, you could play conical tube bowling or dry ice hockey. Get creative. So to avoid authorship issues among your team, plan authorship from the start, clarify the authorship criteria, define the authorship roles and responsibilities, discuss authorship regularly, keep track of contributions, document discussions, and agree on how to resolve disputes. With this strategy, you can ensure that your team comes together, knows the expectations, collaborates constructively, and supports what is best for the project and team. Now, if you liked this video, you might also like the second one in this series about how to choose the order of the authors in the byline. I hope that you enjoyed this 3-part series on authorship. If there's something in particular that you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments. I create these videos for you, so I want to make sure that I'm creating something that you will find valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next video.